Hello everyone, this is Suzanne at the Gospel Truth. I am in my living room today. This is a little bit of a change of pace. And we are going to continue our reading of The Hiding Place, the story of Corrie Ten Boom. Now, as we all know, Corrie's family is Dutch, and they have been hiding Jews in a secret room. And the Nazis were always trying to catch them. And rumors started abounding that they were hiding Jews, and everybody knew it. And finally they came there and arrested the whole family. They beat up Corrie and Betsy and Pickwick, and they separated the men from the women in the prison. And then she found out that a lot of the family members had been released, but she hadn't heard any word about her dad. And then Nally somehow manages to get a package to her, and there was a letter, and she asked Corrie, "Can you be very brave?" And Corrie really didn't want to read the rest of the letter because she knew it was probably going to be something very bad. And she says, "I have news that it's very hard to write you. Father survived his arrest only by 10 days. He is now with the Lord." And not knowing much more details or where he was buried, and what does Corrie do? She cries out to Jesus. "Dear Jesus," I finally whispered, "to think that Father sees you now face to face, to think that he and Mama are together again." I pulled the cot from the wall, and below the calendar scratched another date, March 9th, 1944, Father released. I think sometimes death can be a blessing when you're living under such horrific conditions, and he was quite up in age. And Corrie and her sister are not any spring chickens themselves. And remember what Corrie went through when she was so sick at the house, and then they busted in and drug him away, beat him up, and it took her a long, long time to recover from that. All right, chapter 11 is called The Lieutenant. Now, before I go on, I want to mention that I am having a giveaway. December 17th is the deadline. I mentioned this in my other video. I'll mention it every time I come on reading a chapter. It is a book of devotions that Corrie Ten Boom wrote, and it's a fantastic book, one that eventually we'll be doing. But you have to make a comment in the comment box, because that's how I know who you are, and that's the only way your name will go in for the drawing. So if you haven't done that yet, make a comment that you're following the reading of this book as best you can. I know some of you are reading it every time you have a chance to pop on and listen to a chapter. So I just wanted to make that clear, that you do have to make a comment. That's the only way I know that you're out there, and that, okay, you get to go in the drawing. All right, chapter 11, The Lieutenant. I was walking with a guard down a corridor on a morning in late May. After 3 months in prison, I had been called for my first hearing. I'm sure that 3 months in prison probably felt like a year. "Lord Jesus, you were called to a hearing too. Show me what to do." Isn't it wonderful how Corrie always calls on the Lord for direction in her life during these harsh, harsh times? We could learn a lesson from that. We stepped into a small interior courtyard. The guard halted in front of a hut and rapped on the door. "Ja," a man's voice. "Ja," called a man's voice. The guard pushed open the door, gave a straight-armed salute, and marched off. The man wore a gun in a leather holster and a beribboned uniform. He was the gentle-mannered man who had visited me in my cell. "I am Lieutenant Rams," he said, stepping to the door to close it behind me. "Let me get a fire going." He filled a pot-belly stove with coal. What if this were all a subtle trap? This kind manner, Perhaps he had simply found it more effective than brutality in tricking the truth from affection-starved people. Oh, Lord, let no weak gullibility on my part endanger another's life. Again, she's asking the Lord for direction and for help. I hope, the officer was saying, we won't have any more days this spring as cold as this one. He drew out a chair for me to sit on. Weary, I accepted it. How strange after 3 months to feel a chair behind me, chair arms for my hands. The heat from the stove was quickly warming the little room. In spite of myself, I began to relax. I ventured a timid comment about spring flowers. We talked about flowers for a while, and then he said, I would like to help you, Miss Ten Boom, but you must tell me everything. I may not be able to do something, but only if you do not hide anything from me. For an hour he questioned me, using every psychological trick that the young men of our group had drilled me in. In fact, I felt like a student who had crammed for a difficult exam and then is tested on the most elementary material. It soon became clear that they believed the BG had been a headquarters for raids on food ration offices around the country. Of all the illegal activities I had on my conscience, this was probably the one I knew least about. Other than receiving the stolen cards each month and passing them on, I know no detail of the operation. Apparently, my real ignorance began to show. After a while, Lieutenant Ram stopped making notes of my answers. Your other activities, Miss Ten Boom, what would you like to tell me about them? Other activities? Oh, you mean you want to know about my church for mentally impaired people. This was something I had done before the war, and I plunged into an eager account of my efforts at preaching to those with mental challenges. The lieutenant's eyebrows rose. What a waste of time and energy, he exploded at last. If you want converts, surely one normal person is worth all the half-wits in the world. I stared into the man's intelligent eyes. Then, to my astonishment, I heard my own voice saying boldly, May I tell you the truth, Lieutenant Rums? Oh, what is she going to say? This hearing, Miss Ten Boom, is based on the assumption that you will do me that honor. The truth is, sir, I said, swallowing, is that God's viewpoint is something different from ours, so different that we could not even guess it unless he had given us a book that tells us such things. I knew it was madness to talk this way to a Nazi officer, but he said nothing, so I plunged ahead. In the Bible, I learned that God values us not for our strength or our brains, but simply because he has made us. Who knows? His eyes, a half-wit may be, who knows? In his eyes, a half-wit may be worth more than a watchmaker or a lieutenant. Oh, wow. She's getting brave now, isn't she? Or a lieutenant? You think that's going to go well for her? I don't. Let's see what happens here. Lieutenant Ralm stood abruptly. This will be all for today. He walked swiftly to the door. Guard! The prisoner will return to her cell. Following the guard through the long corridors, I knew I had said too much. I had ruined whatever chance I had that this man might take an interest in my case. And yet, the following morning, it was Lieutenant Rams himself who unlocked my cell door and escorted me to the hearing. In the courtyard this time, a bright sun was shining. Today, he said, we will stay outside. You are not getting enough sun. Gratefully, I followed him to the farthest corner of the little yard where the air was warm. We settled our backs against the wall. I could not sleep last night, the lieutenant said, thinking about that book where you have read such different ideas. What else does it say in there? Wow, should her alarms go up? Or is he truly interested in the Word of God? On my closed eyelids, the sun glimmered and blazed. It says, I began slowly, that a light has come into the world so that we need no longer to walk in the dark. Is there darkness in your life, Lieutenant? There was a very long silence. "There is great darkness," he said at last. "I cannot bear the work I do here." Then all at once he was telling me about his wife and children, about their garden, their dogs, their summer hiking vacations. Our town was bombed again last week. Each morning I ask myself, are they still alive? "There is one who has them always in his sight, Lieutenant Roms. Jesus is the light the Bible shows to me, the light that can shine even in such darkness as yours." Wow, this is a turn of events here. Corrie has a great knowledge of the Bible, and she speaks what she needs to speak at the right time. Timing is important in doing that. The man pulled the visor of his hat lower over his eyes. The skull and crossbones glinted in the sunlight. When he spoke, it was so low I could hardly hear. "What can you know of darkness like mine?" 2 more mornings the hearings continued. He had dropped all pretense of questioning me on my underground activities and seemed especially to enjoy hearing about my childhood. Mama, Father, the aunts, he wanted to hear stories about them again and again. He was incensed to learn that Father had died right here in Shivingen. The documents on my case made no mention of it. Those documents did not answer one question: the reason for solitary confinement. Prisoners' condition contagious to others in cell. I stared at the brief typed words where Lieutenant Ram's finger rested. I thought of the long nights, the scowling guards, the rule of silence. But I'm not contagious now. I've been better for weeks, and my own sister is so close. Lieutenant Roms, if I could only see Betsy, if I could talk to her, but just for a few minutes. He lifted his eyes from the desk, and I saw anguish in them. "Miss Ten Boom, is it possible I appear to you as a powerful person? I wear a uniform. I have a certain authority over those under me. But I'm in prison, dear lady from Harlem, a prison stronger than this one." It was the 4th and final hearing, and we had come back into the small hut for signing the transcript of our meetings. He gathered up the completed paperwork and went out with it, leaving me alone. I was sorry to say goodbye to this man who was struggling so earnestly for truth. But the lieutenant returned to the room with a guard from the woman's wing. "Prisoner Ten Boom has completed her hearing," he said, "and will return to her cell." The young woman snapped to attention. As I stepped through the door, Lieutenant Roms leaned forward. "Walk slowly," he said, in corridor F. Walk slowly? What did he mean? The guard strode down the long door-lined hall so swiftly I had to trot to keep up with her. Ahead of us, a trustee was unlocking the door of a cell. I trailed behind the guard as much as I dared, my heart thumping wildly. It could be Betsy's cell. I knew it. When I was abreast of the door, Betsy's back was to the corridor. I could see only the graceful, unswept bun of her hair. The other woman in the cell stared curiously into the corridor. Her head remained bent over something in her lap, but I had seen the home Betsy had made in Shevingen. Unbelievable. Against all logic, this cell was charming. My eyes seized details as I inched back. Past. The straw pallets were rolled instead of a pile in a heap, standing like little pillars along the walls, each with a lady's hat atop it. The headscarf had somehow been hung along the wall. The contents of several food packages were arranged on a small shelf. Even the coats hanging on their hooks were part of the welcome of that room, each sleeve draped over the shoulder of the coat next to it like a row of dancing children. I hurried after my escort. It had been a glimpse only, 2 seconds at the most, but as I walked through the corridors of Shevingen with Betsy's spirit at my side. Boy, that must have been amazing for her to see her sister and that she's alive, and to see that she had made their cell as comfortable and as welcoming as it could be. Wow. It's amazing with little people can do much, isn't it? That always amazes me. All morning I heard doors opening and closing. Now keys rattled outside my own, and a young guard bounded in. "Prisoner, stand attention," she squeaked. I stared at her eyes. The girl was in mortal fear of something or someone. I wonder what that might be. Then a shadow filled the doorway with the tallest woman I had ever seen step into the cell. Her features were classically handsome, and she had the face and the height of a goddess, but not a flicker of feeling registered in her eyes. "No sheets in here either, I see," she said in German to the guard. "See that she has 2 by Friday, one to be changed every 2 weeks. The ice-cold eyes appraised me exactly as they had the bed. "How many showers does this prisoner get?" The guard wet her lips. "About once a week." "1 shower a month was closer. She'll go twice a week." "Sheets, regular showers." Were conditions going to be better? The new head matron took strides into the cell. She pointed to a box of soda crackers that had come in a second package from Nally. "No boxes in the cells," I cried the little girl in Dutch. Not knowing what else to do, I dumped the crackers out onto the cot. At the matron's unspoken command, I emptied a bottle of vitamins and a sack of peppermint drops the same way. Unlike the former head matron, who shrieked and scolded endlessly, this woman worked in terrifying silence. With a gesture, she directed the guard to feel beneath the mattress. My heart wedged in my throat. My remaining gospel was hidden there. The guard knelt and ran her hands the length of the cot, but whether she was too nervous to do a thorough job or whether there was a more mysterious explanation, she straightened up empty-handed, and then they were gone. That's good. I'm glad that her gospel wasn't taken. It was this tall, ramrod, straight woman who unlocked the door to my cell one afternoon in the second half of June and admitted Lieutenant Roms. At the severity in his face, I swallowed the greeting that had almost burst from me. "You will come to my office," he said briefly. "The notary has come." "Notary?" I said. "For the reading of your father's will." He made an impatient gesture. "It's the law. Families present when a will is opened." Already he was heading from the cell and down the corridor. I broke into a clumsy run to keep up with the strides of the silent woman beside me. The law? What law? And since when had the German occupation government concerned itself with Dutch legal procedures? Family present? No, don't let yourself think of it. At the door to the courtyard, the matron turned back along the corridor. I followed Lieutenant Roms into the dazzling early summer afternoon. He opened the door for me into the hut. Before my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I was drowning in William's embrace. "Corrie, baby sister." It was 50 years since he had called me that. Now Nally's arm was around me too, the other one still clinging to Betsy, as though by the strength of her grip she could hold us together forever. Betsy, Nally, William. I did not know which name to cry first. Time was in that little room too, and Flip, and another man. When I had time to look, I recognized the Haarlem's notary who had been called into the watch shop's few legal consultations. Wow, she's with the whole family for the first time in over 3 months. I can't imagine the emotions that were running through Corrie's mind at that time. We held each other at arm's length to look, and we babbled questions all at once. Betsy was thin and prison pale, but it was William who shocked me. His face was gaunt, yellow, and pain-haunted. He had come home from Scheveningen looking this way, Tyne told me. 2 of the 8 men crowded into his tiny cell had died while he was there. I could not bear to see him this way. I crooked my arm through his, standing so close that I did not have to look at him, loving the sound of his deep rolling voice. William did not seem aware of his own illness. His concern was for all the Kick. Their handsome son had been seized the month before while helping an American parachute reach the North Sea. They believed Kick had been on one of the most recent prison trains into Germany. As for Father, they had learned a few more facts about his last days. He had apparently become ill in his cell and had been taken to a hospital in The Hague. There, no bed had been available. Father had died in a corridor, separated somehow from his records or any clue as to his identity. Hospital authorities had buried the unknown old man in the pauper cemetery. The family believed they had located the particular grave. Lieutenant Rom stood with his back to us as we talked, staring down at the unlit stove. I opened the package that Nellie had pressed into my hand with the first embrace. It was what my leaping heart had told me, the entire Bible in a compact volume, tucked inside a small pouch with a string for wearing around the neck, as we once had carried our identity cards. I dropped it quickly over my head and down my back beneath my blouse. I could not even find words with which to thank her. The day before, in the shower line, I had given away my last remaining gospel. Oh, what a great comfort this Bible is going to be for Corrie in her future, I don't want to say adventures, but her future dealings with the Germans while she's imprisoned. Okay, let's see. The fourth night, he believed the chief had succeeded. Okay, inciting. Okay, I'll just start again here. We don't know all the details, William was saying in a low voice to Betsy. Just that after days, the soldiers were taken off guard duty at the BG and police stationed there instead. The fourth night, he believed the chief had succeeded in assigning Rolf and another for our group to the same shift. They had found all the Jews well, though cramped and hungry, and had seen them to new hiding places. Oh, that's good. The time is up. Lieutenant Roms left the stove and nodded to the notary. Proceed with the reading of the will. It was a brief document. The BG was home for Betsy and me as long as we wanted it. Should there ever be any money from the sale of the house or watch shop, he knew we would recall his equal love for us all. He committed us with joy to the constant care of God. Even in his will, this great man of faith, he committed us with joy to the constant care of God. Isn't that what we should be doing? Is pray for people that they have the constant care of God in their lives. In the silence that followed, we all bowed our heads. Lord Jesus, William said, we praise you for these moments together under the protection of this good man. How can we thank him? We have no power to do any service. Lord, allow us to share this inheritance from our Father with him as well. Take him, too, and his family into your constant care. Wow, if that doesn't bring Lieutenant Roms into tears, I don't know what would. This good man. I wonder if we'll hear anything further down of more about this lieutenant. Wow, that was a good chapter, wasn't it? That was really nice that Corrie got to enjoy some comforts in the presence of Lieutenant Roms, and that, best of all, she was reunited with her family for the reading of the will. I can imagine they were all talking at once, and maybe nobody listening. Have you ever done that with family? Everybody's talking, and you pick up little bits and pieces of the conversation here or there, but you're anxious to say what you want to say? Wow. What an extraordinary life these people had led. Absolutely. All right, well, that's it for our reading today. Not too bad. Next, we'll be doing chapter 12, and the name of the chapter is VUGHT.
I can hardly wait.
So I did this in the living room. My husband has been sitting here listening to me read this wonderful book. Again, I want to stress to you that leave a comment if you want to get in on the drawing for the 365-Day Devotion book by Corrie Ten Boom. You don't want to miss out on that. It's a great book. I peeked. All right, everyone, you take care. You have a most blessed day in the Lord. Lord willing, I will see you tomorrow.